What's good, folks? Welcome to another episode of the Cover One Film Room, presented, of course, by the Cover One Sports Network. I'm one of your two hosts this evening, Anthony Prohaska, joined, as always, in the film room by Eric Turner. And Eric,
Yes.
Bills training camp is underway. Preseason football starts next week for the Buffalo Bills. Preseason football in general starts tomorrow night with the Hall of Fame game with the Jets and the Browns. To get ready for the season and to really get our juices flowing for training camp and preseason ball and everything Buffalo Bills. We've had several players here in the film room these past several weeks or past month or so. And we thought with training camp fully in the midst, in the middle of week 2 for the Buffalo Bills, Eric, we thought it would be sweet to get another member of the Buffalo Bills to join us here. And you and I, we gravitate towards a lot of things for football. Defensive side of the ball, we really enjoy. I mean, the name of the brand is a defensive coverage. And who do we got in the film room tonight to join us from the Buffalo Bills and on that defensive side of the ball?
We have safety Dean Marlowe jumping into the film room with us. Dean, welcome back into the film room, man. It's been a few years, brother.
It has been a while. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. You know, as Anthony said, training camps here, and you're one of the guys that it has a unique perspective on not just training camp being in what, are you year 9 now? Are you going into year 9?
Yeah, going into year 9.
Wow. But, year 9, but you've also played several years in Carolina under Sean McDermott when he was a defensive coordinator in Carolina. And also, obviously, now with him taking over as a DC, as a head coach, but, calling the plays on defense. You have a unique perspective, man. So, again, welcome to the show. We're going to fire some questions at you. We're, of course, going to break down some film with you. And, again, thanks for joining us, brother. Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Dean, real quick question for you before we start off. You're going into year 9 in a league where I think the average shelf life for like an NFL player is like 2 years or under, and you're breaking that curve. Just what does it take mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, like anything? What does it take to survive in the NFL for almost a decade like you have?
Yeah, it's pretty hard, man. I mean, I think you hit it on the head with the 2.5. I think it's about 2.5 or technically like 2.7 years. It's gone down. It used to be about 3.5, and it's gone down. Just injuries, mental breakdown, just people not being where they want to be and things like that. But I mean, I'm blessed in every way, shape, or form to be able to play going into 9 years. It's hard, man. It weighs a lot on your mental, your emotional, and your spiritual state, like you stated. I would say mentally, man, you gotta stay locked, and you can never get comfortable. You have to be able to show that you can still do it every year. Guys like me being undrafted 9 years ago, I've literally had to fight my way every year. And I've always gained a competitive edge with knowing that I always have a chip on my shoulder, and I can never get comfortable. I know that they're trying to replace me every year, and I'm not going to let that happen. I feel like I've been going into my 9th year. Being said that, going into my 9th year, I believe that I'm here for a reason. A lot of guys don't last this long, and I've played well. I've showed up when I need to show up, from special teams to playing defense. And I've also been a good teammate, man, a good guy that can just, help younger dudes. Always trying to learn from guys that I'm around. Just kind of having that Kaizen mindset that, McDermott tries to, put in our heads, just saying like, hey, success just doesn't look like this. It's up and down. But you kind of have that mindset of always wanting to improve, because you can't, emotionally, a lot of guys just, some single guys are out there, some guys with families, it weighs on the families just as much as it does, anyone else. And as long as you have a good support system, good friends, good family, and you got a good head on your shoulders, and let's just be honest, it's a productive league. And if you're not producing, they're going to find somebody else to get the job done. So trying to do everything you can and just succeeding the most as possible as you can, and given every opportunity that you're given, that's just kind of like what you got to take advantage of, man.
So you're a couple weeks into this camp this year. Now, what's different this time around at camp at St. John Fisher versus maybe a few years ago Again, when you first came to the team, what's different? What's changed? What's the feeling at camp this specific year?
This specific year, I feel like we're so deep in every position group, man. From receiver to offensive line, to defensive line, to linebackers. Obviously, Tremaine's not here anymore, but there's a whole bunch of younger guys that are up and fighting for jobs. The cornerback room is deep. The safety room is even deep now. Like our whole team, like is just we're I think we might be one of the deepest teams in the NFL in terms of vet presence, talent, and guys that have played in this league for a long time. So that everyone out there is just competing. Training camp is this to always build that chemistry with your guys and to form a team going into the season. And this year it feels like, honestly, this is one of the most competitive camps that I've been a part of just in 6 days.
It seems very business-like compared to prior years. That's one of the first things that we notice. You guys are loose when practice starts and you guys are cracking jokes here and there, but it just seems like when practice starts, it's like a flip is switched and it's time to work.
Yeah, we got to get something done, man. It's just like we've been close for years. I mean, obviously I was here from 17 to 20 and we had I think 19, 20. We had 2 playoff appearances that, one was obviously in the wild card in 19 against Houston, and then 20, the AFC Championship against Kansas City. And then obviously I left for a year. And then last year we were in divisional round and just, couldn't get the job done. So there's a lot of buzz going on around, the Bills just saying how good of a team we are, but, we can't finish the job. So like, that kind of gives us a little bit of motivation, not just from the outside sources, but just internally of the guys that we have. Like, we know we can do it.
Right.
And we have the players to do it. It's just kind of putting all those pieces together.
Dean, talk about how a training camp environment or just like the feel or the vibe of it, talk about how it differs based on the kind of like team you're on. So like you talked about like this Bills team, like having a good mix of that vet presence combined with someone like the heavy expectations for this team mixed with what's happened the past several years. How do different training camps feel based on, I guess, the kind of team that you're on or the kind of roster that you have? Like, how do they differ based on what the roster makeup is and even the expectations for the team going into that year?
Yeah, just like for us, say back in 17, 18 in Buffalo, it was a new regime. Everyone's just saying, oh, the McDermott and Bean is going to build something, So that was the expectation. Everyone was like, hey, we don't expect them to be a Super Bowl caliber team, but we expect them to go in the way of building a right culture. And then you got transfer all the way to 2023 season. I mean, the amount of guys that we have on this team that have been heavily successful in the NFL and the bodies behind them who have also been successful. And you got outside noise saying, hey, like, this might be one of the deepest NFL teams going into a training camp, 90-man roster. Like, how are they going to figure out who's going to be here, who's not? So I think everyone that's here, they have that extra chip. I mean, just our running back room from Cook to Damian to Latavius. Like, I mean, just those 3 guys who have, I mean, Cook was a rookie last year, but I mean, he's showing promising uprise, just like the way explosive. He's a good dude. And then obviously Damian and Latavius have been in the league for a while and have been successful as well. So that's just an example of a group to where you just kind of look around the team and you're like, there's guys that played. I mean, just between Poyer, Micah, and myself, I mean, that's about like 30 years of experience.
That's wild.
Oh, yeah, that's wild. Holy cow. It's funny, Dean, you talk about the depth, and I know a week or 2 ago, that was like something on social media that some were questioning in the national media and even some of, the blogs and whatnot, that the depth on the defensive side, especially like one of the positions you mentioned, corner, like that was mentioned as one that wasn't deep. So it's interesting to hear a player's perspective on that. And we agree with you. There's depth, there's leadership, there's, veterans, there's younger guys, there's talent. It's amazing. The team that Bean and McDermott have compiled. Now, when we're talking McDermott, I'm going to bring up some of these stats for McDermott in prior years, because this is my next question for you. All right. So you played for McDermott for a couple of years, went in Carolina, and we assume that he's going to have a different mindset than maybe Leslie Frazier did. So my question to you is, what are some notable differences schematically between what you've seen before, again, those years you played in Carolina under him, and how things have gone so far through camp this season with him obviously having a lot more involvement on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, so I think when Leslie was here, Leslie and Sean had the same foundation, and that's kind of like where it starts from. I mean, there are guys that basically, Leslie was a head coach in this league, Sean's a head coach, and they're both defensive minded guys. So I would just say Leslie was very successful at what he did for the last, 4 or 5 years.
No doubt.
Coordinator. I think at times the game is evolving, and with more speed, more mobile quarterbacks, with running backs now that are basically somewhat like wide receivers. You need a little bit more of a aggressive approach. And back in 2015 and 16, I mean, we had, I think, 25 or 28 interceptions that Super Bowl year that we had. And we had a lot of pressure going on.
You got after the quarterback, right? I mean, 2015, 2016, some of those stats on for our listeners: pressure percentage 6.8%, that was third in the league; blitz percentage 25% of the time, that was 10th; 104 sacks in 2 years, that was second overall; sack percentage was 7%, tied for second. You can see even on third down, none of that changed. So I totally back up, the numbers back up exactly what you're saying. McDermott was a little more aggressive.
Right. Yeah. And he lays his foundation on that. These guys up front, the defensive line, are our engine to our car. Without them, no one else behind them are who they are. It's a league where if you have a great pass rush, your defensive back situation can sort of be average to below average and make them look great. But if you have a non-good defensive line, and you have a talented superstar back end, they'll look average.
Right.
Because that, it goes hand in hand. We always say that rush and coverage, just kind of like equal up. They complement
each other.
Right. And that's the game of football. I mean,
you affect the quarterback, right?
Right. That's offensive line, defensive line. That's where the game is built. And if anybody that really knows football, they will go to those positions first and say, all right, this is how we build a team. We need our bigs to be dominant, and then we need our back seven to be fast, talented, and know football, So just with McDermott, he's always been like that since I've been with him in 2015, 2016, and then now here. And he's played with I think Jim Johnson. I mean, not played,
absolutely.
But Johnson, I was actually an Eagles fan growing up when I was a young kid. I loved Brian. Wow. Yeah, and huge Brian Dawkins fan.
Yeah.
Just knowing how aggressive they were, and kind of learned a lot from Jim Johnson, and has brought it, to his defensive coordinator days. So McDermott's a guy that loves to get after it. He doesn't like to just sit back and just say, hey, like, we'll react to them. No, he wants to react to us.
Yes.
Sometimes, there comes, some risks with that. And if you become a little bit aggressive, but you know what? McDermott's all for it. He's just like, dude, like, let's just play. Let's play hard. Let's play fast. Let's just play how defense is supposed to be played,
Set the tone.
Oh, beautiful. That's tremendous insight. It's funny, Dean, myself and Eric have, since the McDermott defensive coordinator announcement, we've on this show went back and we're watching Carolina tape, and I was pulling quotes from the Jim Johnson days under Sean McDermott and just Jim Johnson in general, and the whole coaching philosophy and tree. And everything where McDermott cut his teeth with Jim Johnson was affect the quarterback somehow, constantly heat him up. You're disguising your fronts along with the coverage piece. You are dictating and attacking the offense. And it's not just okay, here's who we are. If you can beat us, go ahead. It's nah, we're coming after you. And if you get us, cool, but we're going to get you more often than we get got. And just to see that attack-minded nature translate, it's something that Eric and I are very excited for potentially coming back, a little more bite and a little more teeth in the Bills defense this year. Speaking for you, so I'm a big defensive guy. Safety is my favorite position. So I was pumped as hell when Eric said we were going to have you on the show tonight. And you're a perfect guy to ask this question too, with, going into your 9th year, almost again, a full decade in the NFL. When you came in, the nature of safety play and coverage structures in terms of tendencies were a little bit different than what you saw now. There was more single high back then. The Legion of Boom in Seattle was all the rage, and people were running more cover 3 and seeing what you could do off of it. And in today's NFL, you have more of a prevalence of disguising your coverages. There's more too high shells and too high coverage structures, both pre and post snap. As a safety, when you're rolling in that too high world, you have to fit the run from depth, not to mention covering in a variety of coverages against a variety of players and skill sets and body types. And you have to do all of that within a rule structure that favors the wide receivers and the offense and puts you guys constantly at a disadvantage. Just talk about how much is asked of a safety in today's NFL and how truly difficult it is to play that position, and maybe even the evolution of the position as a whole since you've been in the league for a good chunk of time.
Yeah, when I was a rookie, I had the ability to play with Roman Harper, Kurt Coleman, Trey Boston, Michael Griffin, guys that played, in the times where safeties were prevalently called, hey, you're a strong safety, you're a free safety.
Yes.
Those days. And that's kind of how I started off coming in, like, hey, like, I'm a bigger body. I'm about 6'2", 200, 205. Like, you're a bigger body who can, fit in the box more, like things like that. And just 8 years ago, if you were that size, you were considered a strong safety.
Yep.
Right.
And, you had your free safeties that were about 5'11" to maybe 6'1", 190, 195 pounds that probably played nickel, had some corner background, but, they threw it free safety because they would be in the post a lot.
Right.
Oh, it's just the game has changed so much in 8 years where, I mean, look at the science behind guys now that are my size running 4.3s, 4.4s, and can cover ground, can fit in the box, are strong. Like, and I think that now, like, you kind of have to have a little bit of everything. And guys that don't have a little bit of everything are probably not going to last in this league now playing the safety position, because you can't just line up in the single high and say, hey, I'm going to play single high 45 snaps and the other 15 I'll get in the box and get the job. Like, you got to do everything now. Like, these quarterbacks and these receivers are getting so fast. These running backs are so fast and strong, and just, it's the science behind the body now with these athletes that are coming into the league is just, it's out the world. And you got to be able to move in space now. Like, if you can't move in space, you probably won't last. And it's just like a lot of corners are getting moved to safety. I mean, the size of safeties now, they're getting smaller. Safeties are 5'10" to 6 foot, maybe 195 pounds on average now, because they can run fast.
All right.
They're smaller to fit in these boxes. And then obviously the corners are getting bigger. Corners are getting 6'2", 100, 205 pounds, guys that can match up with these receivers outside. And the game is kind of flip-flopping, which is weird because you look at corners are small, safeties are bigger, but now it's actually changing. But you get a benefit from a safety that has size, is strong, can move in space, can play man coverage, can play in the deep part of the field. Like, you got your Derwin Jameses, you got, your Minkah Fitzpatricks. Like, you just got you got your Harrison Smith. I mean, Harrison Smith has been doing it at a high.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a big guy, and 6'2", 210, 215, and he's been playing at a high level. And then you got, Dr. Poirier and Mr. Hyde here that have freaking been playing at a high level for 7 straight years, and they're probably pushing 200 pounds, on a good day. But they play so big, they play strong, they play, they're phenomenal players. So I'm freaking blessed to been able to play with them half of my career.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Learn from them, but just being a safety, man, is I think is a little bit undervalued in the league. I'm not being biased, but I do think that like the mental capacity for a safety and the way you have to play, it brings a lot to a defense.
Sure.
In terms of you can move these guys to like the linebacker dime position, you can move these guys to nickel, you can move these
Slot. Yeah.
and create so many mismatches, man. And it's just all about finding like, where that person fits the best at. So I think the evolution of safety, man, is actually continuously on the rise to guys that can freaking run. I mean, that are big, that can just like
Yeah.
fit in the box, can play deep, and like the too high system is starting to be where the NFL is going now, because these quarterbacks and receivers have freaking can throw on their knees at 70 and things like that. So it'll be pretty interesting to see, like, once my playing days are over, to see like if it continues to go in the direction that it's gone, or if it might I don't switch. I don't know. It'll be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
My follow-up question to that, it's a great segue because, you mentioned Kurt Coleman, you mentioned Roman Harper, guys that, really had successful seasons as safeties in McDermott's defenses when they were on towards the end of their careers, right?
Right.
Obviously you mentioned Poyer, Hyde, kind of along the same boat. You're 31 now. I mean, you're north of 30 now too. So what is it about this system that can plug in guys like yourself, Poyer, Hyde, and have, especially late in the careers, Coleman and Harper, and have the success they do in McDermott's system?
In McDermott's system, you got to be smart, man. You have to know what is going on. You can be 25 years old, have all the athletic ability. This guy has all the upside, but if he does not know what to do on defense in our system, he'll look like he is not a good player.
Right.
And that would probably be looked at from the outside as saying, oh, what is he doing? Like, he's supposed to be this all-star, this Pro Bowler, this first round draft pick. I mean, if you don't know what you're doing, and if you don't know what you're doing, I think it's hard for you to play, especially in McDermott's system. He prides himself a lot on having the versatility to know, hey, like, I can play in the box, I can play deep. And when you know that, and when you know what to do, I think if you're still playing in this league, you have an opportunity to freaking be successful, man, in that system. I mean, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other systems in the league that, requires a lot of smart people. There's a lot of systems that are pretty straightforward. But when you have a lot of pressures and a lot of just different looks and just a very, very like crazy ordeal going on defense, you just have to know like what you're doing. And when you know what you're doing, you're putting yourself in the best position to make plays. And like Kurt Coleman, and he was freaking year 6 or year 7 when he had that 9 interception season.
Yeah.
I mean, even just like you said, I mean, Poyer was 31 last year and had freaking 4 or 5 picks or whatever. And
Balled out.
it's just, guys, as long as you know what you're doing and you can still run and play hard, then I think you can be successful until the day you say, hey, I don't want to play anymore. I can be 34 years old. I mean, look at Kareem Jackson. I mean, Kareem Jackson, who's 34, maybe 35 years old, going into his 14th season, and he's still playing at a high level. And he used to be a corner.
Right.
And as long as you know what you're doing and you're out there just flying around making plays, like I always tell Poe, I said, age does not matter. Age, the way you've been playing, I think you could play all the way to you 35, 36.
I agree. And he started late too with the injury too. So it's not like he played a lot of snaps those first few years, which is a big thing, obviously.
Right.
Yeah. You mentioned multiple times in that piece just now talking about like knowing what you're doing. And I think especially at the safety position, I mean, every position in the NFL, but especially at the safety position, I feel like that functional football intelligence, that football IQ, like really has to be prevalent in any player, because so much is asked of you with what you have to diagnose and the responsibilities that you've got multiple responsibilities to start every single play. And then based on what happens at the snap, in the blink of an eye, you have to be able to diagnose it accurately and efficiently, and then be able to act on it physically with your body. Like there's so much that's asked of you. And obviously a lot of that mental side of it comes from studying film, watching tape. This show is the film room. Eric and I grind tape like no one else, like no one's business. We got to ask you about your film study process. Obviously, just sitting here talking to you, like you're smart as hell when it comes to the game, and you wouldn't be surviving this long in the league, to your point, if you didn't know ball like that.
Right.
So talk to us about your film study process. What do you look for? What tendencies do you cue in on? Just anything and everything when it comes to your film study process.
Yeah. So as a safety, I mean, we as safeties, everyone says, "Oh, does he have range? Does he have range?" I think that range is not only you have speed, range is you have instincts to know when that quarterback is going to set his foot back and I'm going to break, because I've hate and I know his mechanics. So I can get a 2-3 step head start knowing what's going to happen. And then they're like, "Oh man, like this dude broke out of the middle of the field and had a red line break and made a play on the ball." Yeah, you have range because you know the insights of your opponent. But then obviously when a person who has that smart and has that speed, you're just putting it together right there. So I just think that for me, when I'm going in the film room as a safety, I kind of like look at the offensive line at first, and I'm like, okay, the difference between like run and play action. Like a lot of teams, is hard nowadays. I mean, because these offensive linemen are so athletic that it may look like, they're run blocking because they get off the ball so fast, but they're really just kind of, buying some time for play action.
Right.
So you kind of have to like pick out your guys. All right, I'm gonna look at the tackle. I'm gonna look at the guard. Things like
and
that.
RPOs can kind of throw a curveball in that way too, right? Because they're run blocking, but they're also not trying to go too far downfield. So it's kind of like a restrained run block, right? So that can kind of throw in a curveball.
Yeah, and then from the offensive line, I kind of pick a guy, and I'm like, okay, like if I'm going to be playing against him, I'm going to try to watch him and see on a run, how does he act? On pass, how does he act? What's his body language during a run or a pass? And then, I kind of go to, hey, like on first and second down, are they a play action team? Are they a drop back team? What kind of quarterback do they have? Because maybe if they have a mobile quarterback, they might put in a lot of boots. They might do things like that. And that kind of brings you, I don't even really look at route concepts until that first day of practice, where we're actually saying, okay, so they like to do this. You kind of just, for me personally, I like to break down personnel first and then put the personnel with the concepts and what I like to do as offense. So, and I've learned a lot from Micah and Poe, just kind of like how just watching film with them every day. And it's just, they pick up on like the small little nuggets and you're like, oh man, I didn't even like realize that. Like, and just things like that is really cool. And then, obviously your skill positions, like, the running backs, and then obviously we go against tight ends a lot. So, we kind of say, is there a tight end matchup that we need to know this week? How does he like to run his routes? This and that. So it kind of depends on team to team with film study. But obviously you want to see that quarterback, because you never know, like you may have a pocket guy who, you never believe a quarterback's first look, especially when he's trying to pass.
Right.
But sometimes, like, there's some quarterbacks out here that will look one way and they are throwing that way. So you kind of really have to know, like, are you playing against your Joshes where he's trying to hold you, or your Mahomes where he's trying to hold you, or are you playing against a younger guy who is still trying to learn to mess with a safety in terms of his looks and stuff like that. So it can go a long way, film study, but if you break it down in small little nuances like that, it may help you out.
No, that's, that mechanics of a quarterback and knowing when he's throwing, studying that throwing motion kind of falls in line with what Kaiir Elam had said when he was playing the Dolphins, and he got his interception in that cover 2 look where he read the tilt of the shoulder of the quarterback. He knew he had to fly back deep so that he could cover the honey hole shot from that quarterback. So that falls right in line, and I'm sure is a key for many defensive backs, whether they're throwing it quick or you're throwing it down the field. But there is one question, Dean. We keep trying to get into the film, but this is a really good one, because obviously Dalton Kincaid was a high investment by Bean. Talk about this kid and how difficult he is to cover, maybe why he's so difficult to cover. And we're talking about an early round tight end. So that's one of those things, like, historically doesn't transition all that well. But what are your thoughts on Kincaid so far?
Yeah, so I actually had one rep against him in practice this week, and obviously I'm year 9, he's a rookie, but he's so smooth, like, in his route. So, like, I was pressing him up, and I kind of got him on his release at first, but then he countered back outside after I kind of got him, and then I got in the trail position because I just kind of knew, like, with a tight end's break points, you're either at 5 yards, 10 to 12, or you're running like a 15-yard 7 or an over. So his release, I knew he was either going in or out. Unfortunately, I guessed the wrong way.
He countered you.
Yeah, like, you know what? I'm gonna take a risk. I'm gonna just guess, because the way I got him inside and then he broke back outside, I'm like, all right, he broke back outside. I don't think he's gonna break back outside to come back inside. That's kind of the purpose of a route. And then he kind of sat down and smoothly got out of his route. Yes, and the whole rep just looked bad. It looked bad, but I was like, practice, I'm taking my risk in practice. Obviously in the game, not gonna be more active. But he's a smooth dude, man. Like, just his hands are smooth. Like, he kind of reminds me of just like a Kelsey a little bit. Just he's not the biggest guy and he's not the fastest guy, but he does have some wiggle to him. He has really great route craft. And to be a rookie, the dude doesn't even seem like a rookie. Like, he's walking around, he's just, a good guy, good teammate. He just feels like he just fits in.
Right.
Like some kind of rookies come in here and they're just like very timid and all that thing. Like, no, he'll sit down at the table with you and just start talking and just like smile and do this stuff like he's been there for 5 years. So I think he's really comfortable. He'll be a great asset for our offense for sure. And just for the most part, man, he's a good dude. And, I need to get a couple more. I need my rep back at practice. Hopefully this week I'll get to go up against him this week and kind of get my
redemption, right? Get your redeem.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna jump into the film here. Those great answers, Dean. Man, you really brought a lot of value to our fan base with just that short segment. But now we're gonna get into the film here. Dolphins game. This is your interception. I'm gonna let it roll here. Then I want you to walk us through the scheme, the technique, the assignment, what you saw from top to bottom to pick off the quarterback here in the playoffs.
Yeah, man. If you ask all those 10 guys on that field right there, was Dean in the right position? He was being straight. We have this call that's predicated off of where the quarterback is located. So it kind of like our quarters calls and our call with the quarterback, is he in the gun, is he under center, kind of deal, kind of like, it was weird. He started off in the gun and then he came back under center, and I kind of stayed in that call, and I was just like, this is what I see, and everyone else is looking at me like, why the hell is Dean so low down?
Right.
Ball snapped. Poyer's basically know. I mean, we've played together for a while, so he kind of knows. He's like, oh man, Dean's down. I'm gonna just close the post slowly. So we kind of turned it into a different call on the run.
Cover 3, essentially. It looked like a cover 3 slice from him where he sliced that over route. This looks like cover 3 to us.
Oh, yeah.
You're saying this is actually supposed to be quarters?
It's supposed to be quarters, but basically with me coming down,
right,
Poyer just kind of said, oh, Dean's down. I'm going to just close the middle of the field.
Yeah.
And whatever happens, happens. And then obviously Trey, there's a cover 3 slice going on. And Trey is just, we're always taught when something is leaving your zone, you just fly high. You never know what can come back.
Amazing.
And just, honestly, granted, I give more credit to the guys that I was playing with, because they made me right. And they played off of me, knowing that I basically turned it into a whole different defense.
I love this. This is amazing.
They played off of me. And then from that point on, obviously, I've been taught since I was a Pop Warner young kid, when there's a rollout boot to you, you just expand. You see who your threat is. But I know that if someone's in front of me, somebody's behind me.
Behind you.
So I kind of, when I already knew I, was in this position, I said, you know what, let me try and bait him a little bit. Like, let me try to stay low so I can, have him think that thing behind me is open. And then, I didn't know how deep that thing was. It looked like it was probably around 15 yards.
Yeah.
20 yards.
Intermediate.
And Poe was just in chase mode. And then I seen him throw the ball, and I just had to like quickly like pivot and I was like, I'm about to go get that thing. And I got it, man. And I made a scary defensive play turn into a great defensive play. So,
amazing. That's amazing. It's something that we always talk about when it comes to, third parties like us that watch film and break down film or break down these plays, and companies like PFF that go ahead and grade these plays and sell it as a product. This is a play that you probably got a really good grade on, Dean, for intercepting this ball here and doing a great job, obviously ad-libbing here, but a play that in the grand scheme of things, you were, like you said, you admitted that you were, basically out of position. And this is what I love about this defense. We've talked about it with Rousseau. We talked about it with Elam, the different choreography and ad-libbing and the continuity in this with this system, that guys are able to, hey, no, that one guy may be out of position, but we know how to fill the gaps to overlap in those gray areas when, something does go wrong. I love that about this play. Again, we appreciate you being honest about it, but we love that about football and what we love about this defense.
And you know what's crazy? I would probably say 50 to 60% of NFL plays that are made that are big time on defense are probably because somebody messed up or somebody's not in the best position and they ended up making something great out of nothing to justify mine. But there's a lot of guys that I've been with for a while that have made a lot of plays in this league and a lot of money in this league that where it's like, hey, like, you know what? I'm about to just go make a play.
Outside structure.
In the right position, but I'm going to just do it. And you know what? You're never wrong in your coach's eyes when you do something on your own and you make a play.
Yeah.
But yeah, because everyone came to the sideline and they were like, wait, weren't you supposed to be deeper? And I'm like, well, yeah, but I just kind of
went rogue.
Yeah, I seen that it was a shown quarterback under center, so I just went down. And thank God for Poe saving me back there too. And then Trey obviously closing the post. And that's one thing, like you said, about this scheme, that we're so quarterback vision based that if there are mistakes like this, we play off one another
all the time.
And that's kind of like what happened right here. Like, they knew that I was playing something different, and they turned it into what we would have been playing if we just said, hey, let's play this. Right. So, and then obviously it in a rollout boot, two-man route, deep route, kind of, it worked out the way it was supposed to work out.
You jogged, Anthony, I'm sorry. You jogged my memory. Something exactly like this happened a few years ago. I remember talking to Poe about it. It was against the Dolphins, and it was between him and Hyde, where one sliced when he shouldn't have, and they covered for each other. Like, that happens so often for Hyde and Poyer, it seems. They're on the same page, and they've been playing together so long that they're able to cover up for each other. Like I said, I think Hyde was supposed to slice and take the over, and Poe covered for him, but Hyde ended up making the interception on the back end, very much like this play. So again, it comes back to you guys playing this system, understanding the system, and being on the same page. Like, that symmetry in the secondary has been phenomenal since McDermott's gotten there.
Yeah, he has guys that know that they're smart, and like, when you have guys that are smart, they can play off one another. And if you see somebody, there was a play that happened in practice yesterday or 2 days ago that
we lost you.
Sorry about that.
Nope.
One dude was down, and I was.
Oh no! Technical issues in the dorms. You there?
No, yeah, I'm here. It's
right.
Matt Milano. He's giving me a call right now.
Oh,
Yeah, but he can wait.
appreciate it.
Make the all-pro wait. Thank you.
Yeah. And it's just like yesterday. I mean, like I was saying 2 days ago or yesterday, I can't remember what day it was. We were in supposed to be like a quarters coverage, and one person got sucked down on the run, and they're supposed to be deeper. And one thing I did, I was like, oh damn, I mean, I don't see anybody deep. Let me just close the freaking post. And
Right.
that's one thing about our safeties and our nickels. Like, if anything, we see somebody down, we run so much quarterback vision, defenses that that gives us the ability, as one safety kind of is out of position, the other safety closes the post and and helps out.
Man, I'm like shook at my core with that play, because for so much of Dean, like so much of what we do, and Eric and I say this all the time, right? Because so we're breaking down film and trying to educate people as much as we can. And we always say, like, no matter how much we know or we think we know, we're not in the huddle. We don't know the play call.
Right.
And so much of, like, especially breaking down coverages in today's NFL, like with the prevalence of match coverage and all the different rules-based defenses and how teams play things, it can be hard to figure out like what coverage a defense was playing. And looking at that one, I would have bet my life. I'd be like, oh, this is easy. This is just cover 3. Boom.
Right.
Marlowe's down.
Right.
Pose in the post. He slices. Boom. This is good to go.
Yeah.
And you're out here being like, nah, it was quarters. I stayed down when I shouldn't have. And so, one, I'm shook to my core because I'm like, I'm never going to know what a coverage was supposed to be ever again in my life.
Second guessing everything now.
Yeah, I'm going to second guess everything I think for forever now, even more than I already do, because I'm super paranoid. But 2, just like the fluidity that, you and Eric both talk about now, like the fluidity of that, again, like what the call was supposed to be and how that coverage played out just like a regular cover 3 call, because of the functional football IQ and intelligence and ability of you guys to recognize, like, oh, okay, he did this, so let me close the post and let me do this. And then it played out like a completely different coverage call.
Right.
And that's beautiful. Like, that's the science or the poetry of football all in one play. Like, it's so beautiful. And at the same time, has just completely shook me to my core and everything that I believe in. Like,
if you really think about it, there's probably on average, maybe I would probably say 60 to 70, probably 65 to 70 nowadays, 65 to 75 snaps in an NFL game nowadays. I would probably say about 5 to 10 of those snaps, there are so many like mess ups, things don't go way like you think it's supposed to go, and then like it gets messy and things like. And those happen to be one of them, and I was able to make a great play on one of the, the plays that could have potentially been messy.
Yeah.
But, that's like you said, that's the love of football, man. Like, after that, knowing that I was slightly out of position, turning it into basically a different defensive call, and then now just playing on my instincts. And that's just me. I mean, I've always been an instinctive player, and that kind of showcased like what I can do. Just from the years I've been in this defense, like this defense has given me the ability to actually play like free, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And again, like to bring it all back with that safety conversation, like Poe being fluid and closing the post on that, and then you just kind of reverting your instincts and being like, all right, I know ball. Like, if someone's in front of me, someone's got to be behind me. Let me bait the QB a little bit, and all of that happening like instantaneously, like as you make a read and process. Like, it's that play, I feel bad for myself, but that was awesome for you. Like, the insight was tremendous, man. Like, and I think for the episode as a whole, like, one, like we want to thank you for taking the time. Like, it's training camp, which is obviously like a busy time for you. And, when we know you had an off day today, but we appreciate the hell out of you for taking the time to sit down with us, break down a play, and really just, you were tremendously insightful. Like, again, we not to kind of throw any more flowers your way, but to survive in the league this long and thrive in the league like you have, you got to know what you're doing from a preparation standpoint and a football IQ standpoint, and just your knowledge, your insight, your ability to break everything down. was absolutely tremendous. And so I thank the hell out of you. I know Eric as well.
Yes.
If you want to go anything there, like, just, we appreciate the hell out of you for taking the time and just being absolutely tremendous and adding a lot of knowledge and insight to this episode and show for us, man.
Yeah, no problem, man. It's always good to go out, and talk ball. And I'm a smart dude, so I know things that are going on, and I love creating connections with the Buffalo community, and it's awesome.
Listen, you definitely brought some value and insight to our fan base today and the Bills Mafia community, man. As Anthony said, we thank you so much for coming into the film room. Hopefully throughout the season, we'll be able to bring you back on, break down some plays. Maybe you and Matt Milano can come on. We can chop it up. We talk some defense and see some of his mess ups where he makes plays. You know what I mean? Like, that would be, that's a show in itself, Dean. Like, that's gold. Like, I'm serious. Think about that. As your second career, like that could be a really, really good show, because as you said, it looks great on film, on the broadcast film, and guys are making plays out of structure, but breaking down like what actually went wrong on that play to lead to that is actually some good stuff. But as Anthony said, great stuff today, man. We held you a little longer than we wanted to, but we appreciate you taking time out of your day during camp, and we hope you enjoy the food and the hospitality at St. John Fisher, my alma mater, during your stay at camp.
Yeah, it's always a great hospitality here, man. Every time we're here for training camp, the staff and our staff does a great job, like, putting everything together. It's awesome.
Hell yeah, Dean. We wish you the best of luck for the rest of this camp and the season as a whole, and honestly, anything and everything going forward, man. Again, thank you so much. You were tremendous. We appreciate the hell out of you. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night, and we'll catch you around.
Appreciate that, man. You guys have a good night.
Appreciate you. Later, man.
Bye.
That was amazing.
That was fun, man. Like, that is exactly the type of interview that fans need and want in the off season, in camp. That's never happened before.
I am so broken.
That, like, just the film, the film side of it. We walked into that episode thinking, yeah, that's a simple cover 3 slice. And it turned into that, but not by call. It was ad-libbed. Like, that is so amazing. That insight is so amazing. And I do agree with him. I do agree that a lot of the big plays that are made, the guys that are playing above the scheme are out of structure. And, not everyone's playing their job and doing their job and executing perfectly on a play. So that type of stuff does happen a lot.
Yeah. I mean, look at the safety position around that time. Like, when, Dean was talking about, like, Brian Dawkins being his guy, like Ed Reed and Troy Polamalu, like, how many times were they just going rogue and making plays? And it was like, oh, that's not built in. That's just Ed Reed being Ed Reed. Or that's not built in. That's just Troy Polamalu being Troy Polamalu. Like, sometimes dudes just go out and make plays. And that's why those playmakers are so special. But this piece, like, yeah, I wasn't joking. Like, that shook me to my core. Because, again, to your point too, like, we're just like, oh, sweet, cover 3, and it all played out regular. Like, play action, you respect the run, you drop back into the flat, you can see everybody's responsibility.
3-level passing, let me get in between, robot, yada yada yada.
Exactly.
Like,
cake, easy to break down. Like, easy. That call or that play is one of the, for us, like, not knowing what the play call is one of the easiest plays to break down because of how it played out. And knowing that wasn't the call, but that's how it played into, it's honestly a beautiful thing. And it also, again, speaks to how good these guys are at their job and being able to adjust on the fly and staying fluid and not being like, oh no, like, I was supposed to be here and now I'm here. And Poe being like, oh no, we're supposed to be in quarters and now I got to do this. And then even Trey, like, dropping back high up top, like, just what you see there. Yeah. Everything here, this is a traditional, like, granted, depending on where Poe is, right?
This is right here. This is the only thing that sets off alarms of where the ball's spotted on the right hash, right? And then he stays there. He's selling like he's going to go to the post area, but he stays there post snap. Yeah. All right. And that's the only thing that really throws me off, which is why, yes, this is where he would be because of quarters. But obviously, Marlowe's not back there. He's damn near into the C gap. Like, so, oh man, that was just so much fun, man. So like, awesome. what a curveball that he threw us. I don't know where to go with this episode now because it was that good.
I'm like shook.
His insight to McDermott nailed it. Like, that's what we want to hear, right? That's what we want to hear. And for a safety, we were talking in the private chat about how a safety, a defensive back, literally just said that everything starts with the pass rush, not the
Pass rush over
coverage. Like, so remember that. Just remember that moment. So with that said, man, we talked about the defensive side. I do want to talk about a little about the offense and what we've seen at camp, man. So let's start off with maybe something that stood out to you at camp the first few days, the first week or so out at St. John Fisher.
You know, it's some of the pieces we talked about after being on day 4 there at camp, but I think just the different feel to some of the formations that they're using based on, you know, the 12 personnel pieces, but the different looks formationally, more variation, more players being put in different spots than they maybe traditionally would have been in the past, seeing more short motion, seeing more exploded looks and changing from, you know, a condensed look to a spread look, spread to condensed, right, vice versa. So seeing those little wrinkles being tested out and those kind of the poking and the prodding and what buttons are being pushed on. So that's like schematically like where my head is really at. And then Eric, you know, two guys who, you know, we talked about Dalton Kincaid a little bit with Dean earlier. I still just can't get over Stephon Diggs and how every single day he just keeps crushing everyone that gets in his path. He is, that's exactly the best way to put it. Like, he just seems like he is out. And it's not just, at the end of the day, I want to prove it. Every single rep, whether it's individual, whether it's team, he's going,
whether he's getting the ball or not.
Yes,
he's just unguardable. He's been that good in camp. I've never seen him dominate like this. I've said that on Twitter. I haven't seen him dominate at camp like he has this year. He's just unguardable by some really good defensive players.
Yes. And this is a dude who's known for how hard he works and how professional he is with his approach to the game. And it's just like he ratcheted up like he was already like a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. And he found a way to go to like a 15. And everybody who gets in his way is just getting cooked. Exactly your point, whether he's getting the ball or not. And just to see him operating on that level, it's been awesome. And then you mix in with like some of the different wrinkles and schematic pieces we've seen offensively. And it's been fun to see what the offense has done from a weaponry standpoint. But I just really can't get over it every day, him just winning left and right and left and right.
Yeah, so Diggs has stood out, and you heard Davis's name called a bunch. Kincaid obviously has been the talk of the town. Dean broke it down, that rep. I totally that was
forgot
not
he was the one that got beat.
I forgot that he was the one that got roasted.
Right,
but
he got ran by.
Articulated it so freaking well, man. Because yes, Kincaid broke inside initially, stemmed inside. Then as Dean tried to press him and get in his face, he cut back across the face, then got vertical, and then still cut in on a dig route. Like, it was a sick route. And again, that's something that you know, kind of segue into what we're talking about now. So right now we have some stats from Josh Allen, courtesy of our new analytics guy, Sam DeSorbo, and his Twitter handles right there at the bottom of the graphic. And it's something that we talked about, you know, when we were going into the draft, Anthony, right? Controlling the middle of the field, how the Bills missed a Cole Beasley, a guy that could control the middle of the field and really be the outlet, the chain mover, the quasi run game, the guy that is the hot route when the blitz is coming. And the middle of the field is an area that the Bills have wanted to get better on the last few years. And you can see some of Josh Allen's rankings last year on EPA, in the EPA stat at all depths. So I had Sam look at short, medium, and long, and you can see overall he was 25th in the middle of the field, 31st in the short, which is like usually 0 to 9 yards, 10 to 19 yards at medium range is 40. He was 43rd. And this is like all players with at least 10 passes at each of those levels. But you see deep, long, 20 yards plus, he was 4th in EPA. So I had him look up these stats just to kind of talk about controlling the middle of the field and how the Bills need to get back to that. Because, Anthony, that's the largest portion of the field. And many times last year, they avoided it, and especially in those crucial situations. And the ball was pinned out wide to the 1 or the 2, Diggs or Davis. And it just it's a tough way to live when you want to be efficient on offense. It's a great way to live when you want to be explosive and score in 3 plays or 4 plays. But when you want to move the ball, control the ball, and control the middle of the field, that's just tough not being able to trust guys over the middle.
Absolutely. And we saw it really from, you know, we had broken down some of the schematic pieces with, but also like the Josh Allen trust factor, like the guys that he was going to weren't making those plays for him. It really started with that first game against the Rams, and you saw him start to kind of move away from the middle of the field consciously. And then whether it was, His elbow injury later in the year, that got pushed even further towards the back end of the year, and we just saw more attempts outside the numbers and outside the numbers. And exactly like you said, that's a hard way to live. Even if you're living in a short world outside the numbers, it's still a longer throw. There's still more bodies and more opportunity for the passing window or lanes to get clogged for you. You want to be able to attack that middle. It's right in front of you. It's the biggest area of the field between those hashes or between the numbers. And to not have confidence in attacking that area or not having the personnel or people to allow you to attack that area, exactly like you said, you're missing out on a huge chunk of the field and a huge way to exploit and attack your opponent.
Yeah, and this is next gen stats, and this is from 2020, just to give you an idea, his passer rating in the middle of the field. So you can see short, middle, 112.7. You can see the league average below it, 89.7. Middle intermediate area, 155.8. That's damn near perfect. League average was 90. And then deep, he had a 74.3 passer rating. The league average was 86.1. So this, again, we always look back to this year because that's when that offense was efficient. They were humming. They were explosive. They did everything right on offense. Now you look at last year, and you're going to see how, again, passer rating it's not the stat to really use, but I'm just trying to paint the picture of how much lower he was in that area. 91.8 in this short middle. League average was 90. So he's literally just above league average. 92.7. League average was 87.5. And then again, deep middle, he was on money. 101. League average is 82.6. So he lived and died by the explosive ball. But having a guy like Kincaid can help this offense control the middle of the field, like you saw in that route versus Dean.
Oh, yeah. Just that ability to, I'm still laughing because when he was breaking it down with that question, I immediately was like, oh no, he was the one that got beat on that dig. Yeah, he's got that ability. And Eric, we talked about it once we broke down his film in the film room here once he was drafted by the Buffalo Bills. He just gives you that player who has the feel and the understanding for coverages and the feel and understanding for space and leverage, the ability to play off of what he's seeing post snap, whether even if the picture changed pre to post snap, he's just so functional there. And it's a lot of it is the football intelligence and the football IQ. And some of it is like this clip you're showing right now where like there's a throw that is a little bit off frame, and the hands that he has, or hand, I should say here, with his ability to kind of just reach out with that left mitt and just pull it and bring it in between his hands, his size, his frame, his catch radius, his skill set, and his familiarity in living in this kind of role, he now gives you the opportunity to attack that middle of the field more previously, like the Bills had done with Cole Beasley to a degree, but maybe even in a different way now because Kincaid has such a bigger frame, right, and such a larger catch radius. It gives you more of an opportunity to kind of attack the middle, maybe with even a little more confidence, knowing that if you're Josh Allen, I don't have to put the ball right on my guy. I can kind of get it in a range within him. And because he's got the size and catch radius and hands, he can go up and snatch that ball. He's really a perfect fit for the scheme and for the offense to give them that opportunity to reclaim the middle of the field like they had in prior years.
Yeah, and it's not just, where he's going to operate from the slot, kind of detached from the formation, but the different types of routes up the seam. With him and Knox, you can run them up the seam. And sometimes, if they're playing cover 3 on the defense and that's a weakness, you can throw it and feather it up over the top of that second level and hit Kincaid. It doesn't have to be perfect because, like, as you said, he's got that length, he's got the bigger frame and those hands. I mean, I don't know if he's dropped the ball at camp yet. Like, he's been that good. And, that's kind of his MO when it comes to receiving the ball. But as Dean said, he's been so smooth in his routes. He's been finding the voids and coverages. If you're trying to man up against him, good luck. And like I said, the Bills defense is really good and has some really good matchup defenders. And he has just done everything to really earn the trust of Josh Allen and this offensive staff. And I would be shocked at this point if he's not a focal point, because some of the stuff we saw in practice was he was a primary target. And then like 4 or 5 plays later, they would move him around, get the eyes on him, and use him as a decoy to get the ball to someone else. So he's going to be a feature. And I know Kincaid and Knox in many ways are interchangeable, but when you watch them move, you can see where the differences lie. And you're not doing a lot of those things with Knox that you're seeing that they're doing with Kincaid, just because, again, the way he moves, the way he catches the ball and areas he can get to that maybe, Knox really can't. They're just not using him as a decoy, Knox as a decoy. And you saw it a bunch with Kincaid in the first few practices.
Absolutely. And I think it's a good point too, pointing out like their differences, like the level of fluid technicality that Dalton Kincaid has, like how smooth of an athlete he is, but how technical he is in his routes and his stems and what he's doing. It just makes him so hard to guard. And this is what we talked about when he was drafted, right? Because of his injection into this offense with his skill set, size, and frame, and all those pieces, he has a legitimate opportunity to be a consistent mismatch for a defense. Even taking the Dean Marlowe example with when he got beat in practice, that's the world you got to live in, because, okay, if you're a nickel defense, is your nickel corner big enough to match up with Dalton Kincaid? Like, your nickel corner is probably just as good of an athlete or maybe faster, but does he have the size to battle against Kincaid? Oh, no, he doesn't. You want a bigger body? Okay, cool. Are you going with a third linebacker? Are you going with a big nickel or a third safety? And then you have to hope that third safety or third linebacker or big nickel, whatever, you have to hope that even though they have the size and the frame, do they now have the athleticism? Do they now have the coverage chops? And once you get a defense into that position where they know they're outmatched by this guy, then that easy button becomes available where, well, we can just spam that matchup. Or, exactly to your point, you can be the offense and be like, we know they're vulnerable. We know that they know that we know they're vulnerable. So now let's use them as a bit of a decoy. Let's just pull coverages. Let's just pull defenders and create mismatches in other ways. It starts to get into a really fun arena for an offense just off of the addition and execution of one single player.
Right. And so if you have a guy like Kincaid or Hardy, for that matter, Shakir, if you can control the middle of the field more with your F, with your Y, that's going to occupy these safeties a little more, right? And that's why you've been seeing Gabe Davis kind of get deep one-on-one. You're seeing Gabe Davis win in the short area on slants to the middle of the field because the Y and F are drawing that second level, and the safeties for that matter. So eventually, if Kincaid starts to eat as this F, as this slot, eventually what's going to happen is these guys are all going to bump down, and now they're going to congest that second level, right? You're going to have four guys underneath and have those type of coverages that kind of take away the middle of the field. And so once you do that, now you're asking for it, because you can't get the double on Diggs, and you can't really stop Gabe Davis from getting vertical or winning just, speed outs, a simple speed out. So that's why, controlling the middle of the field opens up things so much, because, these tight ends, when they go to them, again, they're those bigger targets and can take those hits in the middle of the field and draw those coverages because they're athletic and they can catch and they're reliable in many ways. Like, that type of chess piece to have now is something that's not on film. The Bills haven't done it. And they've come a long way from playing 10 personnel near the top of the league 3 years ago to now likely going to not lead the league, but probably be top 5, top 7 in 12 personnel if all things go well with Kincaid. So that opens up things on the outside for guys like Gabe Davis. And I think that's why, and a big reason why, that Gabe is having such a great camp.
Yeah, he's been doing really well. It's just the ability to see those advantageous looks on the outside, exactly to your point, because coverage is being pulled on the interior. And this is just from a pure passing concept or idea right now. Imagine what it looks like if it also starts working with the run game, and then you attach Kincaid to the formation, and now that nickel corner has to be in the box, and he's in the run fit right off the bat. And if you don't feel comfortable with that, then it's like, okay, again, let's bring in a safety, let's bring in a linebacker. And it's like, okay, cool. Now we're going to hit you with play action. Now we're going to come out with a 7-man surface and the tight ends attached, and we're going to shift at the line, and we're going with a 2x2 gun look. And now that bigger body has to play in space against Kincaid or Knox or whoever. And then, again, to your point, and the entire time, do you have a corner who's good enough to match up with Stephon Diggs? Because if you don't, he's going to eat. He's probably going to eat regardless, because he's one of the best receivers in the NFL. It's this positive chain reaction and domino effect, all because of the possibility and potential off of the execution of this one guy. And it's really exciting to see. It's really encouraging, as is some of the plays that we've seen from James Cook, just what he's done as a receiver and a runner. I know there's been still some questions about his pass protection, which is fair, but Eric just, he had a couple runs when we were together on Sunday where we were just like, oh, that was great pacing, or, oh, look at the way he set this up. And he had the touchdown on that rail route coming out of the backfield. Him starting to become more of a focal point in the offense with his skill set and how unique his ability is. Dean talked about him earlier, just with how explosive he is and the type of athlete that he is. He's another person who gives you some easy button opportunity or some scheme ability, because he's kind of a walking mismatch depending on what you're going to go into and what you're looking for. And we've seen the Bills kind of tap into him a little bit thus far in camp.
Right. And we're seeing a lot of like perimeter runs, which is not abnormal for him. Like he's a smaller stature guy, but we're seeing him get to the corner and the edge on these, gap type runs, pin and pull runs from shotgun, where they're just running him parallel to the line of scrimmage. And we saw a certain level of patience that, going back to his college film, you probably didn't see, because he was more of that zone one cut guy, quick, get north and south, and then run away from guys. We saw it a bunch on mid zone, again, a zone run where you make that one cut and get north and south for really big gains. Some of his most explosive runs last year were on that call. But we're starting to see the game slow down a little bit more, and you can see him, as you said, pacing the route, pressing the landmark of the line of scrimmage, setting up blocks a little more, because he's not the type of guy. If you remember Shady McCoy, when they would get with Felton and McCoy in a shotgun formation, a split back formation, and they would run that pin and pull down block by the tight end, get some guys out in space on the perimeter. Shady was pressing out wide and looking to cut it back up inside. Same with Gillisley, and they crushed in 2015. Cook's a little different. He wants to bounce it. So his ability to hug that inside hip of that pulling lineman, wait for that guy to kind of log and block him inside, seal him inside so he can bounce. That's more of his game. And we've seen it a bunch in camp, right? We've seen him get that corner because of his patience and the blocking out in front of him from tight ends, wide receivers, and those linemen pulling. Like it's become almost his trademark. It's so far in camp.
Yeah, it's been really fun to see. He, we noted it especially on those gap scheme runs, coming out of Georgia, he would almost hit the hole a little too fast and a little before the blocking scheme was set. And we were just like, man, like if he can just kind of slow things down a bit and operate with a bit more patience and let the play start to develop with his speed and his electricity, he can really become something. And this play against Green Bay is a good example of what Roger Saffold, good block there. Pro Bowler Roger Saffold there. But this is This is the type of thing that can get really exciting with the Bills offense as a whole. Like if you're going to get a light box, which teams are probably going to still show the Bills because they have to respect the passing game, and you just run a pin and pull to the left and look what James Cook can do. This is an example of, kind of what he can do. But this year in camp so far, he's pacing it more. He's allowing those blocks to develop. He's taking it. You see the footwork, you see the speed, you see the electricity, like his ability to push the perimeter on these gap scheme type of runs. And it's just another layer that you add to this offense, another exciting piece. It's something that, nice shoulder there. It's something that brings a lot of excitement because of the juice and electricity he has. But if he can play the running back position and not just be a fast guy with it, it's exciting.
Yeah, and this is what I'm talking about. You see how he kind of slows down right there, hugs that inside hit, lets his man get out there. Bobby Hart with the down block there, and you can see him following Morrison. He with his stature, he gets lost behind these linemen, especially when they're pulling. And I love his contact balance right here because he got lined up in the hole by Mosley there. And I think is that Williams as well, the linebacker Williams,
who hits like a missile.
And you can see the contact balance. So we're seeing glimpses of this. This is actually a small sample when it comes to James Cook running gap runs last year. They didn't do a lot of it, and honestly, he wasn't all that good. I want to say he averaged maybe right around 4 yards per carry when they pulled an offensive lineman, if I remember correctly. And so it's not something that he did all that well, and they didn't ask him to really be that guy when it came to that stuff. And so we see this a lot in camp right now, and we saw it from under center. We saw it from shotgun, again, where he's running down the line of scrimmage and making that cut. But I liked his patience this so far in camp. But I want you to start talking about the passing game, because I had mentioned how, working those tight ends down the seam has opened up some things underneath for guys like James Cook on simple checkdowns where he's taken 5 or 7 yards in a flash because Kincaid and Knox and even Diggs and others were clearing things out. Again, controlling that middle of the field. Those guys at the second level have to expand and gain depth when you have guys that have to be respected, like Knox, like Kincaid, and it opened up Cook a few different times.
Yeah, it becomes just such a, not to reduce it down to this, but an easy pitch and catch when you can just pull defenders from those zones over the middle of the field and your running back just releases and sits over the center for 3 or 4 yards and you just dump it down and you let that easy completion happen. And then someone with James Cook's speed, he can allow you to take advantage of all that space underneath on a simple check down. So it's nice to see, again, tying it into what Kincaid and Knox can be and that controlling the middle of the field aspect for the offense. If you're controlling those bodies and pulling that coverage, James Cook has more opportunity to work underneath if he releases on a check down and catches the ball and has it in space. And then you've got design plays to him like you do in this clip here. You and I were in the stands. We talked about it. As soon as it happened, Cook runs that rail route up the sideline. And again, he's against a legitimate coverage player in Micah Hyde on this play. And this was a play, Eric, we talked about it on Sunday, that the Bills tried to get him on this a couple times last year. I remember one against Tennessee.
Him and Hines, I think, to be honest.
Yes. Oh, and Hines too, good call. And there was just always something kind of off a little bit. And against Tennessee, I think Zach Cunningham was out there on him, and Cunningham just got really physical and pushed him off his route.
Knocked him over.
But exactly, done. You saw he just doesn't have the physical piece to get through there. What was nice about this one is he had a one-on-one opportunity, tons of space to eat because of the rest of the route concepts. And you see this Hyde has a man for man. There's nobody over the top. And you see the completion piece, but what was nice about this was the setup where Cook saw Hyde and saw him not necessarily flat-footed, but saw how he was and no support or no cap over the top. And he just got right around him and used his speed to separate. And this is where that mismatch ability comes in because Cook has legitimate speed. And if you're not proper with your footwork and there's no support over the top, also amazing ball from Josh Allen and almost a really good recovery from Micah Hyde there, who again is elite. This is a second-year James Cook succeeding on a route downfield against an all-pro level safety. And it's, again, so encouraging because if this starts to click, if this starts to work, how do you defend this offense?
Right. And they ran this route in one-on-ones on this day. I think it was the same day where he smoked Terrell Bernard up the sideline on a rail route. So this is something that's in their offense. And more times than not, this play, and my guess for this play is mesh. I believe this is mesh, where they have those shallow crossing routes, and he's part of the progression.
Yeah, mesh rail is one. If you have a running back that can win on that, mesh rail is beautiful to pair together.
Yeah, right. And because, again, especially if you're in the defense isn't like a single high look and you have that flats defender who has to play the flats, but also any wheel route or rail route up the sideline. Again, that would be my guess, is that this was mesh with that rail route versus a cover 3 look, just based on the depth of Hyde on that play and where he was positionally. There's no one outside him. And so, yes, this is something that he's been really good at in college. We saw them try to, as you said, get it to him on this type of play last season. Didn't quite have the contact balance and wherewithal to run up the sideline and face the linebacker and really withstand the contact. And he's got knocked off the stem several times. And so, and as I said, when the Bills traded for Nyheim Hines, they also tried forcing this route to him it didn't really work all that well. And actually we did a whole film room on the red zone about that play concept. So Cook stood out, man. Yeah. He's obviously running back one, especially when we're talking spread game, any of the shotgun plays and formations. That's going to be his bread and butter. He's going to get the rock. Now, if you see the fullback come in there and they get into some kind of strong eye or I formation, guess who's coming? Damian Harris.
Hammer.
So I think they're going to have a really cool complement, a really good 1-2 when it comes to the run game. And I think a lot of fans are going to be surprised, because if you look back to last year, Anthony, we've shown it several different times. The Bills' run game actually was effective. They were top 1 or 2 when it came to yardage before contact. So they blocked up. The offensive line did a good job of blocking up the play and getting, guys into the next level. It was the timing of getting away from the run. It was Dorsey pulling back and just saying, hey, I got Josh Allen. Let's just roll with that. I think fans are going to be really surprised with the run game that we're going to see from the Bills this year.
They were legitimately down the stretch. And granted, some of that is the opponent that you play, but they were one of the best rushing offenses in the NFL down the stretch. And that's not including like Josh Allen runs. That's not including design runs from Allen or scrambles. And Cook was one of the major pieces, like his EPA per attempt and his yards per carry, especially against light boxes. Like he started eating down the stretch last year. And yeah, like our biggest gripe on this show with the run game was that it just wasn't used more. Like especially with how Allen was starting to struggle and we were seeing some inconsistencies in the passing game. It was like, just go to the natural pivot, just attack that piece of the defense that they're not prepared for. And you have that ability with James Cook, home run hitter. You got the hammer and Damian Harris. And as this question comes in and says, why are we just missing Latavius Murray? Dude had the same yard per carry and is huge. Eric, you pull up this clip. Yeah, he's an absolute monster. He had a nice play in camp yesterday. He also represents a bit of a hammer opportunity. And, maybe unfortunately with Nyheim Hines being done for the year, his odds of making this team and being a piece, probably goes up. It just depends on, how much.
Right. He is huge. He's a different type of back. And when it comes to, he's a red zone guy, just like Harris. Not so much short yardage. He hasn't really done all that well in short yardage, but you look at him and you see him next to offensive lineman and you say to yourself, okay, this guy is different. Physically, he's different. He's played in the league for so many years now, and to still be making plays like this and flashing that vision and footwork at that age, at that size, after that many hits over the years. Titan, come on now. We didn't dismiss Latavius Murray. We got film on Murray. We got stats on Murray. We do our homework. So you're in the film room, brother. Come on now. Don't doubt us.
It's funny, too,
Don't
because
doubt us now.
We talked about him a whole bunch on Sunday, like just hanging out in the stands. We kept talking about Latavius Murray and like how good he is at this point now. And what was our joke that he'll be playing until he's like 45 or something like that?
No doubt.
He just keeps making plays and just keeps working. It's a fun running back room. You've got the bigger bodied red zone hammers with the proven ability like Latavius Murray and like Damian Harris. And then you've got the explosive, juiced up, chess piece in James Cook. Like some of the pieces, even just Eric, like I know you'd put it out there, I think on day one, right? The Bills using that diamond formation. And when that's used, that's usually like kind of like it's definitely a run look, but more of like a power run look. Like the defense has to respect it. And the Bills come out in that, and then they can just shift. And instead of that being in that diamond formation, all of a sudden they're in a 3-by-2 and James Cook is somewhere on the outside. And now if that defense, how are they correcting for it? If you're in zone, now we have a tell for it. If you're in man, cool. Can your linebacker handle James Cook one-on-one on the outside in a spread look like that? There's all these pieces that just all start to develop because of the skill sets you have, because of the complement of pieces and weapons that you have at the receiver position, the tight end position, the running back position. Now it's a really good group across the board for the skill positions and the weaponry for the Bills that has some top tier talent, but I think more importantly has a lot of different dynamics and skill sets, which gives Ken Dorsey a lot of opportunity and a lot of room to kind of play with this how he wants and be able to attack defenses in multiple ways at any given time, at any given week.
Yeah, I mean, the opportunity to grow, right? Like you have different personnel, and he's just got to get those guys the ball. And I think he learned a lot from last year, right? I think just like players, coaches can grow, and I do believe as much as we've been critical of him, I do think he'll grow. And he's got some really cool pieces that, going back to his time in Carolina, they had similar personnel. He has experience as a quarterback coach and OC there with similar type parts and personnel grouping. So as you can tell, guys, we're excited. It's camp. Football's right around the corner. We got to go out there and see some practice. We got to break down some film with Dean, an amazing film room session that I can't wait for everyone to kind of dive into again. We appreciate everyone tuning in to this week of the film room. And we couldn't do this without you, Anthony, right? Like we literally couldn't go to camp. We couldn't, meet up with the guys that, that live all across the country, talk football. And dude, the reception from our fans of Cover One. I mean, it's like each year it keeps building and building and building. And we're so appreciative of all the love that you guys showed us at camp.
Yeah, it was a and not to kind of just like give ourselves pats on the back for it at all, but it was such a cool thing to, so behind the scenes, Eric and I were at camp on Sunday together, and we were getting ready to shoot a recap, and we're kind of just hanging out, just sitting there in front of the spot, like high traffic area, but just hanging out, like kind of tweeting and talking to each other. And multiple people who just came up and were like, oh, like Eric, oh, like Anthony, and use us by name or reference Cover One, or Eric, we were in line for the bathroom and guys came up to us and were like, yo, what's up? Like, just
here's a Cover One guy.
That's exactly
Eric, hey, what's up, man? It's awesome, man.
Like that group, like that one guy knew who we were, but his friend didn't. And he was like, oh, this is Eric and Anthony. They do the film room and this and this. And like, just the appreciation that we get from you folks in the variety of forms and fashion that it comes in, whether you're watching the shows live with us, whether you're watching it later, whether you give a super chat, whether you are a One Pass member, whether you are just seeing us in person or following on Twitter, anything and everything, the support network for us on this brand is absolutely and sincerely tremendous. And we say it every episode because it's true. We would not be able to do any of this without the support from you folks and the varying kinds of support that you folks give us. So it's always tremendously appreciated. It's tremendously recognized. And it's also nice to know, just from like an emotional standpoint, that what you do kind of matters to a lot of people. Oh, nice. Michael saying Boyko is going to be shook when C1 has a whole section at camp in a few years. Yeah, well, depending on if they change more rules.
Some great stories from camp, no doubt about it. Some great stories. Michael, we met up with Michael. I think it was the first day he came out and watched the practice with us. And that's the thing. Like, we love that. Like, we talk. Michael is an insider, so he's in the Slack channel with us all the time. And, we're always talking football with him. But to do it in person and, again, to have another set of eyes, like when I'm tweeting something or taking notes on something, he's spitting information, helping me out. We're sitting up there with Dean Kincaid, the OG Dean, who does great write-ups from camp. Like, camp's a great time because football's starting. We're getting to see some of the new toys and, again, some of the schematic things that we may see in the season and some of the differences, as Dean pointed out in the film room. And so, as I said, thank you from everyone at Cover One for all of that support. And if you're looking to even support us some more, make sure to join our One Pass, become an insider. It's our premium content. It's $60 for the year. You get behind the scenes content. You get the Slack channel, which is what really the draw, especially during game days. Like, you don't need social media during game days because the Slack channel is more of it's not a roller coaster ride like you're going to see of emotions on social media. So if you want to become an insider, get to cover1.football. You get a lot of, news and nuggets that you're not going to see on social media, and information that we get from our sources. We only share in there. That's why it's called Insiders. So $60 for the year. We appreciate everyone that is already an insider, everyone that's re-upped. This is that time of year where guys are re-upping from last year. So if you do want to become an insider and become part of our community, please get to cover1.football and sign up.
Yeah, that's the Slack channel and the insider piece. Again, we champion it all the time. The Slack channel is really just a tremendous community built on rapport and camaraderie, and it's easy to bring in new people, and just the relationships that everyone has developed off of that is tremendous. And let alone, if you're not in it for the relationships and the camaraderie, and you just want early access or new insider information that you're not really going to get elsewhere, or you may get 2 to 3 days after it's already been broken in the Slack channel, that's definitely something that you want to look into. And it's the One Pass package as a whole, just the content that you're going to get and anything and everything. It's one of the many things that we pride ourselves on with this brand. And we've talked about camp a little bit. Wanted to also mention that myself and Eric and several other members of the Cover One team, we will be at the Bills Blue and Red scrimmage this Friday at Highmark Stadium. Oh, I can't believe I actually called it Highmark. I was going to call it Ralph, right? I'm surprised. We will be there this Friday. So give us a follow on the old Twitter, the main Cover One handle at cover and the number one, myself at pro __ANT. I'm falling apart. It's wild. Sleep deprived over here. Yeah, give us a follow. We'll have tons of breakdowns and analysis pieces live as we are there in person at the scrimmage. So bang it there for those things. And yeah, just major thank you to everybody who joined us live on this show. If you didn't join us live on the show and you watched later, that's cool too. Thank you very much for your post-live view. If you are here on YouTube right now, please, 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 and thank you, drop a like on this video, whether you're here live.
What up, Earl?
Oh, there you go.
There he is.
Up? Yeah, dude, that was legitimately one of the highlights. We were just kind of shooting the shit after, and we were sitting there waiting to shoot the post camp episode there. We were just sitting there being like, dude, it was super sweet that you're just like sitting there like waiting to go pee, and somebody comes up and was like, yo, you guys are awesome, and like dap up, like, so yeah, that was a huge highlight. At the end, he's right there. That's awesome, man. Appreciate you. And again, we appreciate all you folks. Drop a like on this video here on YouTube if you're watching live or watching later. Likes are the lifeblood of videos and the live streams on YouTube. They help us a sincerely large amount. So please, please, please drop a like on this video if you have not already. If you're listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, please rate and review and subscribe, especially on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, but whatever platform you are listening to this episode on. And again, whether you watched live, watched later, listened later, whatever have you, thank you very much for your view, your listen, your download, your attention, your focus. We greatly appreciate it. If you enjoyed this content, please tell your family and friends and loved ones about how awesome this show is and how awesome the channel is, just like Earl did when we saw him at camp on Sunday and let his boy know what's good with Cover One. So kind of pay it forward and pass the buck when it comes to the goodness that is the Cover One Film Room and the brand and channel as a whole. Oh, I think that's going to do it for us here on this episode. Eric, you got anything for us? No? All set?
No, man. That was a great episode. Good back and forth with Dean. We got in some questions that honestly we didn't plan. No, that was a full episode. We appreciate everyone hanging in there with us for the last almost hour and a half. So thanks again.
Yeah, just we never know like how long these episodes are going to go with the guys, and once we get into it, we just start chopping it up. And I'd be remiss if I didn't give another huge thank you to Dean Marlowe, who won again. Like it's camp time, and these dudes are trying to make a team, and they're grinding through stuff. And for him to take the time and sit down with us and chop things up, and then let alone to the level at which he did, the knowledge.
And he armed Matty Milano. While we were live.
If you think about that, like if you ever want to know like how real we are here and how real it is on the show, Matt Milano called Dean Marlowe twice during his appearance here, and Marlowe was like, nah. He silenced the Matt Milano call. An all-pro linebacker got silenced.
That's amazing.
Because he was here with us. An absolutely tremendous piece. But sincerely, like, thank you very much again to Dean Marlowe for joining us and for his level of knowledge and insight and football IQ. It was absolutely tremendous. Thank you to all you folks, and thank you for your support in whatever form or fashion it comes in. If you are at the Blue and Red scrimmage on Friday, feel free to get at us on Twitter. We'll probably see you there. And yeah, we'll see what happens there. But for myself, Anthony Prohaska, for Eric Turner, for Dean Marlowe, this has been another episode of the Cover One Film Room. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. We will see you next Wednesday for another episode of the Cover One Film Room, live 7 p.m. Eastern. And until then, Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.